money. Shop, that's the plan. With SC Mobile, always close. Just tap the app that's doing the most. SC Mobile, always close. Just tap the app that's doing the most.
And good morning to our colleagues on the cloud. I hope you're all doing well and we are keeping safe. I'd want to use the opportunity to thank Lene for this conference. It's actually relevant to the times, and when it comes to us as HR being proactive and also not firefighting but being proactive and being strategic partners, I believe this conference addresses that. I'd also want to thank our panelists and for joining us, Mrs. Gifty Fojo and Dr. Rex Bonsu, and we look forward to really good conversations from them as well. So I'll briefly go to my outline, and before I do that, I'll touch on my topic for today, which is HR's role in managing the third wave of COVID-19 in the office. Now for the outline, we'll look at some statistics and data. We'll start from the world. We'll drill down into Africa. Then we'll look at what pertains to us in Ghana. We'll also look at the impact of COVID-19 on businesses. We'll look at the likely future impacts. We'll also look at managing COVID in the office. And this relates to us as HR people, and coping mechanisms. Then we'll end on HR's role. What is the role of HR in all of this? Now, globally, when it comes to COVID, looking at the numbers, we have 212 million corona cases recorded worldwide, and 4.4 million deaths. And when we look at the top 5 countries that have been impacted, US, UK, Brazil, France, and India. Now, when we come to Africa, what are the numbers saying for us in Africa? We have 7.08 million cases in Africa, and when it comes to the deaths, 177,000 deaths. Ghana has actually been ranked 24th in terms of the highest recorded deaths in Africa, and the top 5 countries in Africa are South Africa, which is leading the pack, with Morocco, Tunisia, Egypt, and Ethiopia. And bringing it home to Ghana in terms of our active cases, as of today, we have 116,441 cases, and we've recorded 991 deaths, which is quite unfortunate because lives have definitely been lost. Now, what has been the general impacts when it comes to COVID-19 on individuals? Healthcare access has become difficult, and this is especially true for non-COVID cases. Now, when you are going to the hospital, you are even scared of going to the hospital, the places that we seek treatment from. Those who have non-COVID related cases are also not being given the attention that they need. Hospital beds are full because COVID has taken up the focus. Now, closure of schools, we've all been impacted with closure of schools. Our children have been impacted with closure of schools, and us resorting to online interventions. Food was a priority during the lockdown. A lot of people went to the markets and the supermarkets just because they knew there was a lockdown and they could not access food. Working from home, our new normal, some would say our next normal, and that has also impacted us as individuals. Remittances has reduced because where we had our relatives and friends from the diaspora sending money down, that has also reduced, and that is also impacting our income levels. Social gatherings, in the past there was even no social gatherings, but currently it's been reduced. Now when people are having a social event, they look at it twice and ask themselves, is this relevant? Do I need to do this? And even when they need to do this, they ensure that the protocols are strictly in place. The daily death toll is putting a lot of fear in individuals. And when we look at the numbers globally for Africa and even for Ghana, 991 deaths over a period of just a year. That can also put fear in people. Face masks have become the new normal. Now, our fashion designers, when they even sew our clothes for us, they add face masks to it. It has become part of our apparel, and that is also the impact. Restricted movements is also one of the impacts of COVID. Lots of jobs and pay cuts, and I'll go into the details on that as we progress in the conversation. Undue stress as the population sits on the fence. Before the vaccination came, a lot of people were worried. What does this mean for us? How can we curb this? And I know some also had home interventions where they, instead of going to a hospital, they'll now have their own medication at home. You know, the neem trees and all at home. And this is also part of the impacts. Anyone who coughs is not a suspect. Now, you cannot cough or sneeze. Once you cough or sneeze, the next question is, have you tested for COVID? You know, and that those are some of the impacts that affect us as individuals. Now, moving on into the impacts for us as businesses, we'll look at both the positive and we'll look at the adverse impacts. 1/4 of companies saw their sales fall by 50%, and on average, total sales dropped by 27%. Now, what does that also mean? Now, that's the adverse impact. Now, the positive impact. Businesses who are in the technological industry actually recorded profits. And last year, Zoom was actually the app of the year for 2020. That shows that in as much as some businesses have recorded a downward trend in their profits, others are also doing well. And bringing it home to Ghana, our telcos. Last year, MTN recorded a 20% growth rate. And also, we had some industries who were not even in the business of producing sanitizers and face masks actually going, the production lines were changed to produce sanitizers. So that just shows that when we are adaptable to change, and just to quote Charles Darwin, paraphrasing, it is not the strongest of the species that survives, it is not the most intelligent, but the one that is most adaptive to change, and that is, we can see from some of the industries that have been able to do that. Even in the insurance industry where I am, in the past you have application forms being done manually. Now we have e-app. You know, online digital solutions have been introduced. So that just shows that the change is quite positive. Now, what has been the impact? Looking at the numbers, let me just go through a few numbers with that. What has been the impact on businesses in Ghana? 8% of firms closed down during the partial lockdown. 30% of educational establishments closed after the easing of the lockdown, and 12% of accommodation and food and transport sectors were closed. And this was when we had the lockdown. We've gone through the first phase, the second phase of the second wave of COVID. We're currently in the third wave of COVID, and these are some of the impacts that we have gone through. Employment, and for us in nature, employment is key. 28% of business establishments reported that they reduced their wages by 25.7% of the workforce. And in terms of the people that have been touched, the numbers, 297,000 workers were impacted. 1% of firms indicated that they laid off workers. And in terms of the actual numbers, it's 11,986. And this is data from the Ghana Statistical Service. Unfortunately, we don't have too much data on the third wave because it's quite recent. But if we have to compare the first wave and the second wave, when it comes to business establishments, the first wave, in terms of the value and the reduction in their profits, 9.1.4%, and the second wave, 80%. For household firms, 95.7%. And the second wave, 73%. Firms in the manufacturing industry have been one of the largest hits, and also those in the trade. Those in the trade recorded 93.7% and 92.7% in the manufacturing industry. In terms of actual value, million Ghana cedis, the average decrease in sales was estimated at 115.2 million Ghana cedis. And when we also look at in August and September of last year, when we look at the impact of the second wave, the average decrease was 51.5%, and that's also corresponded to an estimated 85.5 million Ghana cedis. So a lot of money has been lost when it comes to COVID. Now, just top line, what are the three main impacts areas? I've looked at the statistics and all. 38.3% of firms reported to have reduced wages, 31.8% of firms have reduced working hours, and 8.5% of firms have either increased or adopted the use of digitization. And this is even evident in the conference that we are having now. ideally would have all have been in a meeting, in a conference room, having face-to-face conversations. But COVID has made us adopt to digital processes. In terms of the likely future impact, and this is just to share a few news items with you. Globally, forecasters offer grim fall outlook on COVID-19, with deaths predicted to rise. And this is from the Boston Globe, and very recently on August 21st, which was reported. Then when we come to Africa, and this is a storyline from South Africa, COVID task force asks government to be prepared for 23% of hospitalizations in third wave. So it is real, and in terms of how do we prepare for it and make sure that we've gone through the second wave, the first wave, the second wave, how do we prepare for the third wave and ensure that we are not as hardly hit as the first two waves. Likely future impacts for Ghana. Firms foresee, on an average, a decline in sales of 29.2%, and they also see a decline in employment of 15%. And for us as HR, what does this mean for us? Employment is going to reduce by a whopping 15%. Do we have to look at talent optimization? Do we have to look at multi-skilling our staff? Do we have to look at an open talent economy where we'll look at mobility for our staff? When someone is in finance, based on their skills, they can work in HR or they can work in marketing. How do we make use of the resources that we have in the business, considering that employment is likely to reduce or decline by 15%? These are some of the questions we have to ask ourselves and come up with answers for them as we progress into the third wave. Now, managing COVID in the office. Managing COVID-19 in the office. For us as HR people and for employers, there's now a new obligation in the age of COVID-19 to have safety policies. So those who did not have safety policies or protocols now have safety policies. Personal protective equipment, PPEs, are the new normal. Provision of face masks, provision of hand sanitizers is now part of the new normal, and that also results in an additional cost for businesses. And also deep cleaning, where we are now fumigating our offices frequently. And all these have an impact on our pockets as businesses and as employers. Now, the second is a working from home. It was in the past, 2-3 years ago, if you told someone that I'm working from home, you know, it was usually very common in the multinationals and a few companies, but now it is normal to work from home. Some companies even have rotations where they come in for 1 week, then they stay off for another week. And this is likely to continue beyond the pandemic, and that is based on a recent survey. So working from home has now become a new normal or our next normal. And as HR people, how do we continually adapt to ensure that our teams are properly tooled when it comes to their working tools? They have the requisite tools to efficiently work from home. Virtual working tools have also become our new normal. Microsoft Teams and Zoom, which was, as I mentioned, the app of the year for last year. Then vaccination, I'm sure Doc will speak a lot more on that. Recently in the news, we heard that CNN had fired unvaccinated employees because they had come to the office. That is where we are going now. Vaccination will now become the norm. Your status of vaccination will now determine if you can go to a particular place in terms of the office or a social event. Because now everybody wants to make sure that they're keeping themselves safe, and for HR, keeping our employees and staff safe. So vaccination will be a big topic for us now and into the near future in terms of how do we ensure that our teams are being vaccinated. Recently, when we had the first and second doses of vaccination, I know some institutions actually made provision for their frontline staff to be vaccinated because they wanted to protect them against the COVID variants, the new COVID variants. Employers will also encourage vaccination, as I mentioned. Now, we are involved in, and research is evolving very, very fast. We now have our vaccines. We now have antigens or PCR tests, which tests you immediately if to test if you have COVID or not. So even before you enter an office building, they can even test you and wait for the result before you can enter. That is if you've not been vaccinated. And these are some of the trends that are coming up in the HR space. Hiring is going to be impacted. Now, for us as HR, if you are hiring people, the question of have you been vaccinated is likely to come up. The way that when we are traveling overseas, yellow fever is mandated. In hiring, this is also likely to come up. So, and if you've not been vaccinated, that then begs the question, should you work from home or should you come to the office? If you have to come to the office, what are the interventions that needs to come in place? And these are some of the topics that we'll be having a lot more discussions and deliberations on as HR people to make sure that we are ready for the new normal in terms of the third wave. A response plan. Should we have another lockdown? When we started with the first wave of the lockdown in March and April last year, a lot of businesses put in place business continuity plans. So if the business has to shut down now, how do we ensure that the wheels of the business do not stop running? And now I believe that most of us are well vested, when it comes to business continuity plans. And once another pandemic hits, we will know what we need to do when it comes to business continuity plans. Employee assistance programs, and this money called the EAP. So the ongoing pandemic is actually taking a toll on workers. The stress of taking care of family members that have been ill from COVID, and even some who have lost loved ones, it can take a mental toll on staff. And even the whole fear, as I initially mentioned, the whole fear that comes with COVID, that can take a mental toll on staff. What are we doing to support our employees in this regard? What are the employee assistance programs we've put in place? I know some organizations actually have medical doctors on site to support employees. Some also have consultants, psychiatric consultants, therapy consultants to provide assistance to employees who are going through hard times. And some of them even go beyond just the COVID. Some of them go beyond challenges at home, challenges in the office. And employee assistance program have actually seen a rise with the COVID pandemic coming up. Long working hours. Now, with most people working from home, you have your computer in front of you 24/7. And there are times that you find employees, or you see employees starting their day at 6 and ending at 10. Long working hours. And if this continues, that can also create an additional problem for us, because once employees are working for a long period of time, it's definitely going to impact their health. It's going to impact their ergonomics. So it's really important that we pay attention to this and curb it. Focusing more on employee health, mental health due to the disease. So, and this could be stigma. There's a lot of stigma related to the disease. If people know that, oh, this person has COVID, then every time the person walks in a room, people start walking back, and that's the stigma, and that can also have a toll on your mental health. Another one is the personality traits. So there are people who are extroverts and they like engaging with people. So when I come to the office, I say good morning to Kwejo, I say good morning to Ama, I walk to my office space. If I want to have a discussion with someone, instead of sending an email or picking up the phone, I walk to them and have a conversation with them. And that can actually have a toll on people who are now confined to a particular place 5 days a week. They now can't go anywhere because they have to work from home. And that can actually take a toll on them. That can even cause depression, because they're just staring at a screen the whole day. And these are some of the mental health issues that can come up. And as I mentioned, even when you cough, it connotes you have COVID. And that is also another thing. Then in terms of the pathological, and I'm sure Doc will speak to it in more detail. The complication. Now, there's something called long COVID. Long COVID. Recently in June, I believe in the US, there was a news item of a woman that actually committed suicide because she had recurring symptoms of COVID and she wasn't getting well. And out of depression, she committed suicide. And these are some of the things that as HR people, we should be aware of. People might, it's not just you've had the COVID, you've tested negative, you can now come back to the office. But some actually have long and recurring traits of the COVID. And what does that mean for us in the HR space? We need to support our employees to make sure that as they're going through these times, we are giving them the necessary support and care. The impacts of exposing ourselves to computers, exposing ourselves to our phone screens. We might not feel it now because the working from home, which is the new normal, has just been about a year now. But the long-term impact is the blue light exposure, and this can impact our sleep, and even in the long term result in eye defects for our staff. So what tools, what education are we giving to our employees so that in doing the job, they're also caring for themselves, they're caring for their eyesight, they put in place sleep hygiene interventions so that their well-being is not impacted in all of this change. Productivity and performance management. When COVID hit, the first wave and the second wave, a lot of research confirmed that and this is from the CNN Business, 90% of employees say working remotely has not hurt productivity at all. It means that people are working more from home and they are more productive. But the story has changed. The story has changed in the third wave. When it comes to productivity and performance management, 18% of remote workers only spend 1 hour on their core jobs. So they might just be responding to emails and making calls, but are they doing the core of their job? What has been put in their job description that they are supposed to do? Are they doing the core? The narrative has changed in the third wave. And for HR, what are we putting in place to make sure that productivity is not impacted? And in making sure productivity is not impacted, how are we striking the balance between accountability and empathy? Because it's really important that in driving for the results, in driving for being a strategic business partner, how are we showing empathy as well? So productivity has actually reduced, and it's something that we also need to keep a close eye on so that the business is not adversely impacted. And for business leaders to say, call everybody back to work. We are no longer doing the work from home. But then we also encourage and provide guidance in terms of how do we ensure that productivity is not impacted. Because once productivity goes down, we all know the impact it's going to have on our various businesses. And for the next topic, this is something I'm personally passionate about, bringing the human back into HR. We always say HR has a history of starting as being a welfare manager, being a personnel manager, being a human resource manager. Now we are saying we are strategic business partners. And in all that change, how are we keeping the human in the jobs that we do and bringing the human back into HR? So I should briefly share with you some coping mechanisms. HR's role in managing working hours. We now have remote employees, and as I mentioned, some are working longer than before. Others' productivity has also been impacted. Now we're having dual roles. It's not only the mothers that are taking care of the children. Now the fathers are doing the same. What support are we giving them? And even for parents or employees who have very young children, what support are we giving them? There are times that I'm sure some of us have experienced. You'll be on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call, then you hear the children in the background running around and the parents in a frenzy. Oh, keep quiet, I'm in a meeting, keep quiet, I'm in a call. How are we supporting them? What are we doing? That some companies actually said, when we are having a Zoom meeting or we are having a Microsoft Teams call and your children are around, call them. We want to say hello to them as well. And this is also what work-life integration. It's no longer work-life balance. It's now work-life integration, because now your bosses or your colleagues now know your children, and your children also know your colleagues. So these are some of the things that we can also do. Virtual employee engagements. Watch parties, happy hour. For us at Enterprise, we actually have virtual watch party. We get dispatch riders to deliver watch to every, or Kenke. We even had a Kenke party delivered to every employee's home. We all meet on Microsoft Teams and we just have a chat. We play music and we just have a ball. You know, as much as we cannot meet physically, what are the virtual interventions that we are putting in place for employee engagement? Because in all the stress, in all the longer working hours, in all the mental health issues, it's important that we also, engaging them as employees. It's not only communication on COVID, not only communication on what needs to be done, not only communication on policies, but adding the fun aspect to it as well. And this brings back to the human, bringing the human back into HR. I know some companies we have happy hour and all that. HR's role in work-life integration, facilitating a culture of performance and quality of outputs while employees work from home. How do we do this? How do we ensure that performance management is not impacted, and also the quality of work that employees churn out is also not impacted? Maintaining and enhancing employee engagement, as just said, and equipping employees working from home with the necessary tools. When COVID started with the first wave, we had a lot of companies purchasing laptops, and there was even a shortage of laptops in the country because there was a rush for provision of laptops for staff. How do we provide the necessary tools, the skills that were needed 3 years before, 5 years before, might no longer be relevant now. Now, most of the skills is creative thinking, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, emotional intelligence skills. And these are the skills that are needed now and into the future. And it's important that we train and equip our employees to do this. We live in a VUCA environment, volatile, uncertain, complex, and highly ambiguous. And now there's even wicked problems, and in solving those wicked problems, what are the solutions that we are providing? The solution you might be providing today might not be the solution that will be needed for the future. So in resolving the problems and considering the VUCA environment that we are in, let's ensure that we are providing solutions that will not have a cobra effect on us as individuals and as HR people. I'll conclude here by saying that for people matter for business to matter. Bringing the human back into HR, because once the people matter, we can have the buildings, we can have the office complexes, but it's the people that walk into these buildings, that work from home and make the business actually run. So once people matter, business would definitely matter. Thank you very much.
Enterprise Insurance in partnership with K.
That's it with some dosso. A blind boy and your hustle. As to still only move.
I know Korea Simmons, some dosso. A blind boy, Enterprise alive and see we are moving. We are cruising.
This is how it feels like to have Enterprise Life in your corner. They give solutions that make life easy every day. So now, I can focus on my dreams.
Miss Moko to Kumbitibia, Enterprise Life, when she share more. I don't know. Yeah, who do you move?
Hey,
I shock you.
We've got life.
Dream big. Go on and dream big with us.
Dream big with us. Enterprise, your advantage. Enterprise Insurance in partnership with KEK Insurance Brokers presents a collaboration between two giants of Ghana's insurance industry. The offsprings of the collaboration are Compextra, Third Party Amplified, Home Advantage, and Pet Insure. What Wondering what these names stand for? Let me tell you a short story. Comp Extra. Do you want more from your insurance provider? Comp Extra is the solution you have been waiting for. For a little fee on your comprehensive premium, you can get these extra benefits. Loss of use. Cash compensation for alternative transportation in the event of an accident. You don't have to be stranded because your car is in the workshop. Misfueling. Compensation for mechanical breakdown due to the wrong fuel type in your car. Enhanced PA cover for 4 additional persons you share your ride with. That is the extra value we provide to our motor comprehensive customers. Third party amplified. Did you know a motor third party policy does not give you any cover for your own car? Now, with a third party amplified, you can make a claim on 3 significant parts of your car, such as the windscreen, side mirrors, and minor scratches. No need to worry about the Okada drivers who hit and run. Even with a third party cover, you are sorted for some damages on your vehicle. Home Advantage. Get a home insurance policy bundled with a pet cover at a great discount. Keep your pets as safe as your home. And now, whenever you think of insuring your home, think about getting a bundle cover like the Home Advantage. Pet Insure. Introducing the pet insurance for the first time in Ghana. Our pets are lovely companions. Love them, protect them. Our pet insurance covers medical expenses, accidental death, public liability, accidental injury, and more. Together, let's keep our pets happy, healthy, and protected. Everyone deserves that easy life. Bank in your pocket without the strife. With SC Mobile, always close. Just tap the app, it's doing them.